Up first this evening, is it a cult or an extremist religious group? The question many are asking after police swooped down on the Kahal Yahweh compound in St. James this week.
The security forces were met with resistance as they attempted to remove children from the property during a raid. This followed reports of child abuse and young girls being married to grown men.
Now we have reactions from the police and the Office of the Children's Advocate later in this newscast, but first, a look on life and on the inside.
There's a certain sense of mystique surrounding the activities which happen on this property in Albion St. James. Beside an unfinished building is a tent where it's believed is the home of several men, women and children. How many is part of the mystery, that and what happens on the inside. The people belong to the Yahweh faith. The sign on the front of the main building reads, Bahith Yahweh. Bahith, Hebrew for house, Yahweh, the Hebrew name for God. And as we waited with the hope of speaking to the head of the church, children accompanied by 2 adults emerged. We wondered whether any of them were related to this teacher from Trelawney. For security reasons, we can't reveal her identity, but her sister and niece have been living on the compound for over a year.
I have gone there and I've spoken to my sister who said that they are going to be a set-apart nation.
She says her niece was removed from the formal education system at grade 9. She'd been a student at a prominent high school in St. James and was a GSAT scholarship recipient.
Males, females and children all living together as one with not much outside view for the children. They are not allowed outside.
She said at one point her sister was exiled from the congregation. This after the leader informed her she had a few weeks to live.
She said that she's going to learn dressmaking and how to cook and cookery. I said that's not important. What about her education leading up to going into university and having a profession? The profession that she'll have, she was getting angry at this time. The profession she'll have, she'll become a dressmaker, and whatever the Kahal leaders say, that is what we're going to obey. So she will not be going back to school. Started walking the streets of Montego Bay. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to drink anything at all. And all she was concentrating on is that I am going to die.
Efforts, she adds, have been made in the past to report the matter to the police.
And I told him that I've heard of allegations of sexual assault and so on there. I told him that they whenever a person sinned or they did not obey their leaders, their heads were shaved, because my sister's head was shaven. And they were like, really? In Jamaica? I said, yes. And I told them, so I said, seeing that it is found, but I should go to Montego Bay. I went to Barnett Street Police Station and I reported the same thing to the corporal who was at the front desk. And they kept asking if this is Jamaica. Yes, it is Jamaica. They referred me to Freeport. I went there. I told them of the situation with my niece, and that there's a cult brewing in Norwood and they need to investigate it. They laughed again, asked if all what I'm saying is happening right here in Jamaica. So I said yes, but I did not stop. I kept going. I went to CDA. Nothing was done in the first instance. I went back in November of last year when my information was taken and we were called.
The woman says her family will not stop until her niece is free.
Because she's my everything. That little girl grew up in my hands. Attending school in the afternoons, she would come home with me until her mother gets home from work. But all of this was not so until the new leader took over and changed a few things. It's sad. It saddens me.
And the Office of the Children's Advocate is closely monitoring investigations into developments surrounding the removal of children from the Kahal Yahweh compound in St. James. TVJ's Krista Campbell has that angle of the story.
Still early days yet, but already Children's Advocate Diane Gordon Harrison says court proceedings have begun and more are expected into the removal of 6 children from the Kahal Yahweh compound in St. James. Mrs. Gordon Harrison says she learned about possible questionable activities involving children at the facility late last week. Activities some equate to a cult and which are said to have been ongoing for the past year. In videos captured during the second of 2 joint police-military raids on Tuesday, some of the children displayed otherworldly behavior as the adult members strongly opposed the security forces' actions. The Children's Advocate says allegations of marriages to minors at the facility have not yet been confirmed, but
if there is that in fact happening, then we know forced marriage is a form of human trafficking, specifically child trafficking. So as I said, early days yet, but of course before we make any pronouncements, we have to allow the investigations to proceed and to get the relevant information so that we can assess what is the best way forward.
On Wednesday, the Gleaner reported that 70 followers have allegedly abandoned their homes to live on the compound. In the video of them resisting the security forces' raid on Tuesday, they were surrounded by children dressed in what appears to be some sort of uniform. Mrs. Gordon Harrison expressed her office's concerns.
The safety of the children, whether or not the health practices are in fact at the standard that we require them to be, whether they are properly registered in keeping with our registration, birth and deaths legislation, and what are the provisions being made for their education access, and just the general protection and the practices that they may be exposed to.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.